Senior Report thanks Edmund Besch of Bristol Burgess Insurance Agency, 65 East Main Street, Westfield, for his generous grant to provide news to seniors. Funding is provided by a grant from New York State Senator Catherine M. Young, representing Western New York's 57th District with a local office in Olean. Funding for Senior Report is provided in part by a grant from Andrew Goodell, Assemblyman for the 150th District of the New York State Assembly. Dave Cass and Rick Newell provide funding on behalf of the Lakeview Hotel and Restaurant at the Docks, located on Water Street near the lake in Mayville. Senior Report with Reed Powers thanks Westfield's Schultz Chevy for a generous grant to inform seniors of important news. Over 50 years of service to Westfield by Chevrolet, Schultz Chevy across from the school. The physicians of Jamestown Primary Care are happy to sponsor the Senior Report. From the Access Channel 5 television studio in Mayville, it's Senior Report with Reed Powers. Senior Report is broadcast live throughout northern Chautauqua County on Saturday morning from 9 to 10 a.m. each week. Call in and share a thought, make a comment, ask a question, or simply wish someone a happy birthday on Chautauqua County's only live call-in senior program. Since 1995, Reed has been bringing viewers hundreds of interesting guests, informing the community on a variety of subjects. Here's the host of the show, Reed Powers.
And good morning. What a beautiful day we have here in Chautauqua County, especially after yesterday. We've had, I don't know, 25 feet or something has floated down around here. It's a lot of snow, guys. More coming, but it ain't going to be the same. I'll tell you, we did have about a 2-foot fall a couple of days ago. And it's funny to see the snow. It's not falling, it's going sideways because of the 45-mile-an-hour, 60-mile gust wind, which is fantastically, it's like a hurricane, you know. But at any rate, all's clear, sun's out, looks good, cars are dusted off. They didn't freeze, most of them, so it's easy to knock the snow off. We have a good guest with us today, as all our guests are good guests. We have Andy Goodell. He is our assemblyman, and he's going to be here to talk about a lot of things going on in the assembly, about the money, the taxes, and possibly we might get into the gun bill, which was sneaked by in the middle of the night. We'll have a lot to talk about, that's for sure. Incidentally, he did not vote for that gun bill. Neither did Kathy Young. But it looks like they're never going to be able to undo it because all the downstaters, especially in New York City, they outnumber us by a mile, and they're all in favor of it. And as Andy pointed out, in New York City, they're so scared of rifles and guns. But you know how many people were killed with a rifle in New York City last year? How many, Andy?
None.
None. Zero. So all this craziness for a gun that doesn't kill anybody. Pistols do a lot of, you know, all pistols are semi-automatic, and they want to outlaw all semi-automatics now. Oh, and of course the idiots put through a bill, whoever wrote that bill, it excluded the cops. Cops can no longer have more than 7 shots in their clip. I think that was finally undone, though, with a quick adjustment, but they're not going to adjust the bill. You and I are all screwed, blued, and tattooed. We'll talk more about that in a little while. I must say the county taxes are going up 20%, possibly, according to Crosscut, who is in the know in the county legislature. Fred gets around, and we have A lot of dough coming in to the county from the hotels and motels and everybody else. Are now beginning to collect this money, although they resent it very much turning it over because it basically cuts back on their business. But we do have wonderful winter sports. I see people out skiing right now. There's a cross-country skiing, and the slopes are open. I believe Peak and Peak, if they're still alive and well, but they have an up and down. And the fishermen are getting out. Finally, they're beginning to creep out onto the lake, but they're very cautious. Chautauqua Lake is not safe yet, but usually there's a big village out there. I see kids playing hockey on ponds, and snowmobilers are all over the place having fun. It's a great place to live in the winter as well as the summer. The French, when they came through and buried a huge hoard of gold somewhere up in the creek, the gorge somewhere. We haven't found it yet that we know of, although they may have come back and sneaked it out. Or somebody found it. He's not going to tell everybody about it. But they said this was the Garden of Eden in their writings. We have a beautiful county. And that was during the summer. Now in the winter, it's just beautiful. And I hope we welcome the snowmobilers, because they come in from all over several states to snowmobile around here, because we have these wonderful hills, especially in Mayville. You know, it's 9 degrees in Mayville as we speak. Yeah, that's pretty cool. All right. Biden agrees, incidentally. Our vice president yesterday did comment that all these new gun control laws, which are meaningless because we already have 30,000 on the books, and they're not enforcing them. All these murders that take place with guns, mass killings, are all done with illegal guns, according to the law, but they still want more laws to make it more difficult for a law-abiding citizen to hold a gun, which is his right under the Constitution. New York passed all kinds of craziness. I'll get into that later. I do have a notice or two here. We have some senior groups here which are just fantastic, and I wanted to make a note of a couple of them. We have all kinds of specialties going on. We have, well, here's a soup and sandwich luncheon. It's presented in Westfield by the St. Dominic Parish Hall. It used to be St. James when I was a kid. St. Dominic Parish Hall, and that's on Union Street, just off Main Street in Westfield. You know where the Catholic Church is there. They're having a soup and sandwich luncheon, and it's provided by the Altar and Rosary Society, and they have desserts and beverages, and everybody in the world is welcome. You don't have to be a Roman Catholic. You can be hungry. That's all they want. There's no. It's for peanuts, I might add. I never give prices, or rarely give prices over the television, but very, very inexpensive and wonderful deal. Soup and sandwich luncheon, and this is Wednesday, February 6th. That's next Wednesday if you're watching the show right now, live all over the county. We're now live, thank you, Rosie, in Jamestown, and you can call in anytime you want. And the number to call in is easy to remember. Yeah, it's the Mayville Exchange, 753-JACK, like jack your phone in. Yeah, 5225 is Jack. Okay, so enough said there. The senior groups here, I wanted to make a couple of mentions. First of all, Mayville has a great group, and we're in Mayville, and they support us. And also, so does the mayor up here in Mayville, Mark, and we have a lot of great people going to the senior groups over there. And the senior group meets up in the VFW. You know, it's just off next to Webb's and up the hill. They have a wonderful kitchen there and so forth and so forth. And they meet regularly every 2 weeks at the VFW, and they have usually a dish to pass. In other words, bring the dish to pass and bring your silverware and stuff, and away you go. And it's cheap, it's fun, and it's a great bunch. And they have great support, too, I might add. You know, in Chautauqua County, we have Are You Okay? You call, the police will actually call your house if you're having a health problem or other problems. And the most seniors call each other just to make sure, especially on a day like this. I mean, it's you could be snowed in, literally. Oh, well. Okay, so anyway, Mayville, what a bunch you have over there. Stop by sometime at the VFW. They meet at noon every 2 weeks. And get in touch with a few number of people. There's some great people over there. I want to say hello to the program chair, who does the job over there, Jean Kelsey. What a job. She does programming. And she's a terrific member. She's been working there forever and ever. Chuck Kelsey is her father. And Chuck, very well known, used to be the village clerk here in Mayville and did a fantastic job. Then he started this television station. And it's been one of the first programs he invited on was Senior Report. And I said, well, we'll try it for a few weeks. That was almost 18 years ago. Andy Goodell knows about that. He was my first shot. I used to be on radio in Dunkirk until they decided to take it over because it was making too much money. All right, enough said. I got a lot of stuff here. We're going to take a break. I've got a public service announcement for you. Then we'll have John Hamels on, who's going to make a couple of salty comments. Here you go. This is for you.
He passed away last year. It was hard at first.
Do you have some salty comments?
I found out how sick he was. The doctor suggested hospice care at home. Hospice helped so much. He came home, and that was wonderful. They helped me take care of him. They made his last months comfortable, pain-free. We were able to find some joy till the very end.
He's here. This is Doc. He shoots from the hip. You're on, John Hamels.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back, Andy. You know, wherever I go, 90% of the time, Andy's there.
That's right.
It's unbelievable. He's like a groupie. Hey, you know, we're talking about the senior activities coming up. My buddy here, Donald, he gave me some information from the Mayville Senior Citizens Group, and guess who's going to be playing for them on March 7th? Yours truly.
You're going to be playing personally?
Yeah, me and Bill. We're going to do an Irish program for them, and we're really excited.
Danny Boy?
We'll see. See if we get the vocal cords warmed up for that one.
He came over here and sang one time for us.
We did a program.
It was a lot of fun. It was a great deal.
Yeah, he wanted me to do Danny Boy first thing in the morning. Nah. All right. Well, let's get down to serious business, Reed. I was trying to figure out what I want to talk about and doing it in a way that was professional. So here we go. I want to talk about social change, and we're looking at gun control, and everybody's got their side on it. We talked about the county home. Everybody's got their side about it. Well, right now, what's going on here in Ripley is something I want to talk about that kind of parallels all of what we're seeing here. If I was a dictator, I would be laughing at everything because I'd say, hey, all I got to do is say, this is what's going to happen, it gets done. But that's not how our country works. Our country goes through a whole process of throwing the issue out there. Everybody has their opportunity to say what...
Excepting for gun control in New York State, I might add.
With that one exception. Thank you,
Yeah.
Reed. But you did vote him in, or somebody did vote him in. All right, so
Obama was not, he couldn't be elected dog catcher.
No, it's my 4 minutes now.
Dog catcher. He couldn't be elected dog catcher. Cuomo.
Thank you. Anyways, I don't want to talk about our governor necessarily, but the point is that we all have the opportunity to say what we want to say. But it seems to go through a regular process. And now this is where the heart of it is. I mentioned this a couple weeks ago that what we're seeing is school systems, towns, businesses, the county, whatever, we're shrinking. We're shrinking as far as our capacity to pay for services. The ability to raise taxes is getting tighter and tighter, and so on, and costs are going up. Well, at the school level in Ripley, they are at a crossroads right now. They've tried all kinds of things over the years, since at least let's go back to the early 90s. Mergers and annexations and mergers and this and that, the regional high school, all these kinds of things have not borne fruit. Now, in recent times, I think it was 147 people presented a petition to the school board to ask them to consider tuitioning their students from grade 7 through 12 to another school. All right. So what we get here in the mail when you live in our villages, you get the immediate letter, the people that say, yes, this is a great idea, and then, of course, the ones that say, no, this is the worst thing since whatever, broken mousetraps or whatever, but they present their views. And the reason why I bring this up, because this happens at election time. It happens every time there's a social issue. And I encourage you to read the things. Look at what's going on in your communities and ask questions. Go to meetings, but just don't, read the first thing that's slanted in a particular way, one way or the other. It doesn't matter. And I mean, here's just a bunch of stuff that I just grabbed this morning that I've been keeping track of. You got the stuff from the school that raised 50-some questions about what's going to happen. You've got the Teachers Association that put out their form, as they should. They're concerned. It's their jobs. But they take sort of what I would call a neutral position because they've got to protect themselves, because after the election they still got to come to work and they don't want to raise stink. And then you got the people that are what I call the red herring people. They throw out all these issues that have nothing to do with what's being talked about. So Reed, this is where I'm at on this whole issue. If people in this community, in this town, in this county want to continue to support shrinking situations, get less bang for their dollar, support high taxes because they haven't looked at mergers or consolidations, then vote this kind of thing down. Say no. If you want to look futuristically, you want to look at breaking the mold, you want to get your kids into a future that is different than what was our past, if you want to consider the fact that children are our future, and that with a school system that's under 300 kids right now, the efficiencies become less effective after a while. And you're going to have smaller and smaller class sizes. You're going to have fewer and fewer opportunities. The Board of Education reacted to a parent's request to say, look, we need your help. We need to put this out on the ballot. And if you want a good future in that regard, I say vote yes. Back to you.
Okay, thank you very much, John Hamels. Obviously, we do have some problems here. We do have a shrinking population, especially of children. There are less children. And so you had a school once that was designed for 800. Now you've got 300. And what are you going to do now? Just keep maintaining the huge building and the staff and everything when you could just consolidate with another school, and you still wouldn't have as many kids as you had originally for one school. Out of two. That's a big question, and something we're going to have to worry about for the immediate future, because the cost of education is horrendous, and it's getting higher up here. And we're catching less funds, I might add, this year. Thank you very much, Governor. Now, we have with us a guest who has been with us many times, and I certainly thank you, Andy, for giving yourself the opportunity to tell us what's going on, but for also giving the people the opportunity to talk to you personally.
It's always a pleasure to be here, Reed.
Well, you can call Andy, who is our representative in Albany in the legislature. He's in the Assembly, which is the lower of the bicameral legal entities. We have Kathy Young, who's in the Senate.
Thank goodness.
State Senate, thank goodness. And Andy's been there now, this is your second term, right?
That's correct.
Moving right along. When they tell me they can't get rid of you, 85% of the members of the Senate or of the legislature are reelected automatically because it's set up so that you can't lose unless you burn down an orphanage.
Which I don't recommend.
No, you're a good man, Andy, and I'm glad. Andy was one of my very first programs back when he was the county executive.
Well, about 18 years ago.
Yeah, about 18 years ago in Chautauqua County. And boy, you're risen up, and next step is Congress, I guess, right? And you have a chance now.
Well, now I'm focusing on state business, and I'm glad that Tom Reed is representing us in Congress.
He's doing a good job.
He is, and he's a good guy. He started from humble beginnings, and
right. And you had 12 in his family, kids.
Yeah,
right?
12, and his father passed away when he was a young child.
Right, leaving mom with a handful. He's moved along. Now, and he won the election handily, which I suspected, like you did.
Yes, I was pleased.
You really came through big. Now, we have a lot of issues going on in Albany. We have a phone call?
Yeah.
Oh, let's catch this phone call first. Good morning, caller. Thank you for waiting.
No problem.
Hello? You're on.
Yes, I'd like to just run it by. I am a law-abiding citizen, and I am just a little disturbed at how this law got passed so quickly in the middle of the night. And without any, I mean, even criminals are entitled to due process. We were not even allowed to even protest or discuss this bill as people, as citizens. I mean, this is just, to me, a little disturbing. I was just wondering what your take was on it, Mr. Goodell.
Sure.
Okay, thank you, caller. We'll talk about that. We were going to, because it is so important. Not so much the fact that it's a violation of our constitutional rights, and I'll read a few of these just to give you an idea, but because it's a violation of, I believe, the state constitution. You're supposed to have public comment. You're supposed to have
a public forum. Yes.
Yeah, you're supposed to have the people knowing what's going on so they can contact their legislators. This was secretly done in the middle of the night. The legislators, I'm told, didn't even see the bill until just before they had to vote on it. It was a stack of 40-some-odd pages and a fine print, and they never even saw it until just before they voted.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I got a copy of the bill around midnight on Monday night, and as Reed mentioned, the bill was fairly comprehensive. It was 40-some pages long. Fortunately, they didn't vote in the middle of the night, which was what they were originally talking about. So the next morning, you know, we were up past midnight. I got the bill just before midnight. Normally, the state constitution requires that we have the bills 3 days in advance. And that reason for the 3-day advance notice is so that we can reach out to our constituents, so we can get advice and counsel, and so we can carefully review the bills, so we can evaluate all the nuances, the pros and cons, so it can be properly proofread and made sure that it's a well-drafted bill.
Right.
None of that occurred. And as a result, it was crammed through on the basis of an emergency with a message of necessity from the governor. And by the way, the only emergency was the governor was trying to beat President Obama's report on gun control. That was only a political
Sounds like a little grandstanding to me.
It was absolutely grandstanding. And as a result, because there was not adequate time to even proofread the bill, in my opinion, we pointed out during the floor debate the next day that there were a number of problems with the bills. For example, that made it illegal for police officers to fully load their own weapons, which is, you know, crazy. One section of the bill made it a Class E felon if a law-abiding citizen failed to register their rifle. Another section made it a misdemeanor. You know, which is it? It has a whole slew of problems. Now, as you know, I have a legal background. I'm an attorney. And so I read the bill and evaluated the bill. And I got to tell you, it was tough for me to do it, even as a lawyer, because the bill cross-references a number of other sections of the law. So, you know, the bill itself was 40 pages, but it'd say something like, you know, such and such section of the penal law is amended to read as follows. And to really understand it, you need to go back and research those other sections as well. This bill was political theater at its worst. And I say that because nothing in this bill would have solved the horrific tragedies that we saw over in Sandy Hook, Connecticut, or with the first responders at Webster. None of it dealt with that.
Right.
Instead, what it did is it required law-abiding rifle owners to register their guns or face a Class E felony, a very, very serious felony. In 2011, according to data sent directly by police departments to the Division of Criminal Justice Services, there were only 5 murders in the entire state of New York committed by a rifle. And there are over 1 million law-abiding rifle owners in New York State. Statistically, rifles are safer than cars, motorcycles, even bicycles. There were 70 or 24 people killed by bicycles.
Or bathtubs.
There were 55 people that were killed by subways. Think about that. 11 times more likely to be killed by a subway than by a rifle in New York State.
Right.
And if you look at other data, where we really ought to be focusing resources, 25,000 people were killed by tobacco-related problems, premature deaths. 5,000 times more people than killed by rifles. And the definition of an assault rifle again, it was all designed to take a political advantage of our frustration over the killings in Sandy Hook.
Correct.
Which, by the way, were not done with a rifle anyway. They were done by handguns. But they define an assault rifle as a normal automatic rifle that you would use for hunting, and it becomes an assault rifle if it has, for an example, an adjustable stock. Well, you know, an adjustable stock has nothing to do with the dangerousness of the rifle. And there are a lot of people who like to have an adjustable stock because they might go out target shooting with their son or daughter, and their reach is different than their son or daughter's, and an adjustable stock allows you to move it.
Many of them put a pad on
Absolutely.
it, too,
Yeah.
to protect the shoulder, which is adjustable.
Exactly. And then you hear the opponents of the gun bill saying, well, these are high-powered rifles. They're not high-powered rifles. If you look at what they actually are, they're just above, one of them is the AR-15. I think that uses a shell that's just slightly larger than a .22. They're not high-powered. They're generally lower-powered. And if you look and understand why, the guns that were used by the military, the semi-automatics, use a lower-powered bullet because they get less recoil, which is what you had mentioned as well, Reed. And that's what these rifles are. They're lower powered with less recoil than like a 30-08 or 30-30 or something like that. So it's a situation where politics trumped policy. And now we take and we impose all these restrictions on law-abiding gun owners. The politicians who rammed this through the legislature without complying with the 3-day notice, they all declare victory. Look what we've done to protect you. Look what we've done to deal with gun violence. In reality, they've done virtually nothing to deal with gun violence.
As Biden, our vice president, who did the big hearing on gun control, finally conceded yesterday, it will make very little difference in casualties from guns.
Well, sure.
Absolutely nothing, really.
Now, there were some positive aspects of this, and I want to be fair to the drafters. You know, I support the broader background checks. I think that's important. I support the continuation and expansion of Kendra's law, which expands mental health services. Those are positive things in the bill.
Yes, they are. Yes.
And my frustration, by the way, was the expansion of Kendra's law is temporary. But the registration of law-abiding gun owners is permanent.
Right.
And so the real challenge, of course, when we're dealing with gun violence is to deal with the culture of violence and the underlying causes. And that's not a quick, easy fix. And that's not addressed by requiring rifle owners to register their guns. That's not the problem. It's not the solution. The problem is people who have mental health issues, who have emotional issues, it's a culture of violence that we have. Those are much more difficult. You see this most dramatically when you look at Chicago, Illinois. Chicago had an absolute, complete ban on handguns for 26 years. Now they have the tightest ban on handguns in the nation. You can now own them in Chicago, you just can't have them out in public at all. Still, Chicago leads the nation in handgun murders. And why? Because they have a lot of gang violence. New York City, by contrast, their murder rate is one of the lowest of any major cities. Why? Because they went after the underlying causes. They went after gang violence. They went after the underlying causes of people shooting at each other. You know, in Chicago, you have one gang shoots somebody, the other gang responds by shooting people. It's building. It's not a gun issue. It's a gang issue.
Right.
It's a violence issue.
Well, we'll take a break. Thank you, caller.
Well, thank you.
We'll continue this in a minute. We got a couple more calls. Andy, you want to take one?
Sure, absolutely.
Good morning, caller. Thank you for waiting. Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, you're on.
I would like to bring up NRG and see what the status is of that. It has been on a pilot program for the last 13, 14 years that decreased its contribution to our community from about $14 million in taxes to approximately $2 million in taxes. Will that deferred tax that they've never paid ever see the light of day in our community? Will they be a good citizen, as Mr. Schumer asked them to be?
Yes. The NRG project is extraordinarily important, obviously, for not just the city of Dunkirk, but all of Chautauqua County.
This is a power station in Dunkirk.
Yes, this is a power plant in Dunkirk. And NRG, a few years back, was faced with the choice of either shutting down the Dunkirk plant completely and dismantling it, or investing about $200 million in pollution upgrades. And as part of that agreement and the decision to keep the plant open and invest, a fifth of $1 billion, which is real money, they entered into a pilot agreement with the county. And that pilot agreement gave them a tax break if the plant production was shut down, which is a situation we're facing now. Well, when Marcellus Shale gas came online, with all the natural gas came online, the cost of natural gas dropped from a high of around $14 per MCF down to about, at one point, $2 per MCF. And when that did, coal-powered plants could not produce electricity in a competitive manner in competition. So NRG gave a notice that they were mothballing their coal plant. They simply couldn't operate it profitably based on the cost of coal compared to the cost of natural gas. As part of that shutdown notice, National Grid was required to buy some power from the NRG plant in Dunkirk in order to maintain system reliability. NRG then went forward and made a proposal to convert the Dunkirk plant into a state-of-the-art, high-efficiency, dual-cycle natural gas plant. That's about a $500 to $700 million project, a $500 million to $750 million investment. In order to do that, they need the support of the state. They need the support of National Grid to buy the power. They made a proposal to the governor's task force on energy. The good news is, when that report came out late last year, it specifically mentioned the Dunkirk plant and said that type of repowering option is a good option for the state and for the community. Meanwhile, the Public Service Commission has directed National Grid to evaluate the feasibility of buying more power. National Grid, by the way, is pushing a project that would involve upgrading transmission lines to bypass Dunkirk completely. In my opinion, it's a wrong solution for this area and for the state. National Grid has about 60 days, I think, to produce their recommendations and their cost analysis for bypassing Dunkirk. National Grid then has 30 days to present its financial analysis on why upgrading the Dunkirk plant would be so much better. Obviously, Senator Young and I have been working extremely hard with local officials, including Mayor Doles, who's gone to Albany twice with me on this issue, to back the Dunkirk project. If the Dunkirk project moves forward, it'll be a huge investment, obviously, in our community. We'll maintain those jobs. We'll maintain the tax base. If the Dunkirk project does not go forward, ultimately that plant will be dismantled. And if that plant goes offline and is dismantled, you're going to see the impact on the city budget is like 42%, maybe 44% of its entire city revenue comes from that one plant, and a similar amount for the school system. So,
and the county.
The county also gets several $1 million in tax revenue. So to answer the caller's question, will NRG keep paying Chautauqua County residents and the city school district and the city government literally millions and millions of dollars if their plant no longer exists there? The answer is no. That's not going to happen, and we shouldn't hold our breath or even expect any corporation to just keep paying money when they don't have a plant that's operating or producing any power. On the other hand, NRG was here this last week. They've been putting a lot of effort and energy and to try to make this project work. We're doing everything we can on both the state and the local level to make this project a reality. We presented over 4,000 signatures from local residents in support of the project, and I got to tell you, those petitions are incredibly important, and the local support is incredibly important. And at this point, we're making progress, but the decision hasn't been made. So we'll keep keep our fingers crossed, but that's a great question and obviously an extraordinarily important project for all of us.
Well, it's yes. Thanks for the update. I have one more question. May I?
Sure.
Sure.
Regarding the Chautauqua County nursing home that is up for sale, appears that the county executive is going to push until he gets a successful vote for the sale of the Chautauqua County nursing home. And I'd like to know your position on maintaining local assets. If we had control of that local asset, NRG, we might have had better results over the years, although it sounds like things are working well with the help of our two legislators at the state level. But the state level is not helping our local public nursing homes all over the state. They're going under, and they are now locally controlled, and they can be financially viable if various procedures that have been recommended by the Center for Governmental Research are put into place. The demographics, according to them, will increase 25%. Senior numbers.
Do you have a question? Sounds like a statement.
Well, the question is, would you please assert your desire to keep it as a locally owned and operated viably, financially, if it were viable, financially viable? Right now it's being undermined. Would you endorse the necessity of having a locally run, controlled public nursing home to care for our elderly?
Yeah. Obviously, that's more of a local issue than a state issue, and I have not studied it. I've not been part of the bid process or part of the bid evaluation. You know, it was 20 years ago when I was county executive. It's hard to believe it was that long ago.
Time passes when you're having fun, huh?
And 20 years ago when I was county executive, the county home was actually profitable. It was one of only two, I might add, in the entire state run by a county that was profitable. And at that time, though, the retirement costs that we face were running about 3% of payroll. It's now projected to go over 20%. The retirement costs are outside the control of the state legislature. The New York State Comptroller has sole and exclusive control of the retirement program under the state constitution. And the reason the retirement costs have gone from 3% to nearly 20%, they're projected actually to go over 20% this year of salary, is because when the bond market crashed in 2009 and as a result of the recession, not only did the value of the fund drop dramatically, the rate of return dropped dramatically, and so you had a double whammy. The amount of money you were earning from the bond fund went down, and the value of the bond fund continued to drop even more because you're still paying retirement benefits out of it. So we're still recovering from that.
You've got state contributions to the private sector owners of nursing homes. The HEAL, Healthcare Efficiency and Affordability Law, just gave $5 million to our local heritage homes. And there's $175 million in grants available this year, and yet there's no money to bail out our local asset, our very essential asset from the state. And furthermore, there's the assisted living that your law, state law level, prohibits the public asset from utilizing, from doing, and so then they would make profit. But right now it's only in the private sector. You're helping the private and undermining at the state level the ability of communities to maintain this important.
Okay, the question is, Andy, why don't you let the public hospitals put in such things as assisted living?
Yeah, and good questions on both levels, caller. The HEAL grants, as you correctly note, both for Heritage and for LSS, enabled both of those entities to reduce the number of skilled nursing beds and replace them with assisted care. Historically, if you look at why we're where we're at, counties were given health care authority, and I've always had health care authority, and we have a commissioner of health. And the skilled nursing facilities were designed on a health care model. Counties have never been given authority, and they don't have that authority anywhere in New York State, to be engaged in housing issues. And it was always felt that housing issues were outside the fundamental core responsibility of county government. And so assisted living is not a medical health-oriented program, it's a housing program.
And it probably goes back a century ago when they passed the laws. Why don't they change it?
I don't think there's a desire by the counties, and there's not a push by counties or from New York City in particular, because keep in mind, 2/3 of the assembly comes from New York City. There's not a push to expand the authority of counties to go into the housing field. And so in order to change the law, obviously, you have to get a majority vote from both the Senate and the Assembly. The city representatives, which are over 60 assembly members just from New York City, are not interested at all in having city government become involved in housing issues or expanding the authority of county governments to go in that direction. So you don't have a push anywhere in the state, with the exception of a few counties like here, that would benefit from that. And you need to get that kind of push in order to get that kind of change.
Yeah,
so
they sold out their
the answer to your question is, counties have never been involved in housing directly. They don't have the authority. Assisted living is a housing component, not a healthcare component, and that's been that way for, as Reed said, for over a century.
Yeah.
And there's just not a move on the part of the state. You know, you just don't have the political momentum from any of the other counties to go in that direction. So we just can't move it that way.
Could partner with a private or not-for-profit that could get a Hill grant. There's plenty of room to do that over there, and have I've forgotten what it's called, a partnership with a...
Caller, we're going to have to close this down. We've got several calls coming in.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing up the question of why they're selling our county home. Caller, you're on. New caller.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Fine.
Hey, I know it's winter out, and we have all this lovely snow and everything else, you know, the wonderful winter weather. But, you know, summer's coming up here shortly, and I was just kind of wondering what's going on with the weed situation.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Have they started funding? What's kind of going on with that?
You coughed up 50 grand, didn't you, toward the fund?
We did last year. We amended the budget to get 50 grand in.
Right, and then there was another 50 grand at match. So
that's right.
There was 100, and basically all you're doing is mowing the lawn out there.
We are. There's a couple of things that are going on. I think some you'll find is good news, some are still up in the air. On the good news side, the state has upgraded its environmental analysis of Chautauqua Lake that evaluates where the phosphate is coming. Now, phosphate is a key nutrient for any of the plant growth. Without the phosphate, you don't get this level of plant growth. And what we discovered is that the largest single source of, it's called soluble reactive phosphate, which is what the plants grab and they use to grow. The largest single source comes from the sewer treatment plants, one here in Mayville, one for Chautauqua Institution, one in South County. The DEC has moved forward and is now requiring all the sewer treatment plants to remove the reactive soluble phosphate. And it can be done without a huge investment in capital expense by adding chemicals that react with the phosphate. The phosphate then drops out of the solution, and it can be hauled then out to the landfill or for safe disposal. We anticipate that move by the DEC will reduce the reactive soluble phosphate loading on the lake by about 20 to 25%. And that should be a significant improvement in lake quality. On the weed side, the county has been working to address watershed management issues to reduce nutrient loading into the lake and reduce sediments. And I applaud those efforts. At the same time, though, as you point out, Reed, you got to mow the lawn in the meantime. And if we eliminate all nutrient loading in the lake, the weeds would still grow, of course. That's nature. Nature is always going to have weeds growing there. The question is, how thick are they going to be? And by reducing the runoff and reducing the nutrient loading, we reduce how thick they are, but they will always be growing. So we need to make sure in the meantime that we're providing enough funding to maintain the lake in a usable condition by mowing the lawn, if you will. Just as you would mow the lawn, your own lawn, whether or not you're fertilizing it or not, we need to do the same for the lake.
Okay, well, thank you, caller. I'm not sure we have a real answer yet, but Andy is not a magician either.
No.
We're with Andy Goodell, incidentally, who is our elected official who twice now, who is our assemblyman and doing the job. Thank you, caller. We have
All right.
several other calls. You want to say a final word? Okay, caller, you're out of here. Good morning. Good morning, new caller. You're on.
Yes.
What's up?
Reed.
Yeah.
And Andy. Has anybody ever thought of maybe asking the Indians to buy New York City back?
So, what, $24 worth of wampum or something?
Yes, really, huh?
My question to Andy is, how are there any good ideas out there as to what to do with people who are elderly and like when it comes to driving, because all these accidents, where they hit houses or Dairy Queen or whatever.
That guy was plastered. He hit the house across the street from me in Westfield.
Well, I mean, there's got to be some way you can ask these people to not drive, or something, maybe make them retest after 60 or something.
Well, caller, I did want to comment on one thing. The number of accidents caused by seniors is totally overwhelmed by the number of accidents caused by young people.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The current law right now allows a police officer who's investigating an accident to make a recommendation to DMV to have the driver retested. And that happens once in a while. I've known of situations where a senior citizen has been involved in an accident, typically a minor fender bender. Often they were going very slow, and the officer just questions whether their driving skills are at an appropriate level.
Yeah,
when that happens, the
that's
officer...
the hardest decision to make, for an officer.
Sure. In that situation, the officer can request that DMV schedule a driver's test, and DMV will. And the senior citizen, or it could be a young driver too, it doesn't have to be a senior citizen, but the driver then goes through another road test just like you and I did at some point in time. And I've seen that happen before, and I've had situations where I knew the person and they went through a driver training class just like our young kids do, and they took the road test again. And it's very, very difficult for senior citizens to know when they should stop driving. For many of them, it's very important to maintain their mobility. Many of them drive very little.
The only way they can get to the store, they think.
Oh, absolutely. And most of them are driving, they don't normally drive fast. I don't have a lot of speeding tickets that are from senior citizens. More often they go slower and slower.
And they don't take left turns if they can avoid it, and they never back up any further than they have to.
And
there are certain ways to drive safer.
And they panic when they get some young driver behind them, that's trying to, it scares them because they don't know what to do because they're being pressured.
I'm an old driver, and I know just what to do. I pull over and let them pass me.
And I wave at him in a snowstorm and say, "See you in the ditch."
Absolutely, and I've seen that happen.
Andy, now, you're doing a good job.
Well, thank you. I have to tell you that a number of years ago, I had rather a beat-up car. Actually, I guess things haven't changed that much, but one of the electrical components that failed was the backup light. When you put your car in reverse, and you get a backup light. And so my mechanic put a little toggle switch right on my dashboard. And so if I wanted to back up, I'd toss a switch and my backup lights would come on. Well, because I had that toggle switch, if someone was tailgating to me, I could flash my backup lights at them.
I just hit the brake. It does the same thing.
Well, it does, yeah.
Tap the brake gently, and you should see them going into a spin trying to avoid hitting me. Caller, good point, and I thank you very much.
Yes, Andy, you and Kathy are doing a wonderful job, and you represent us well.
Well, we work very hard at it, and I have to tell you, I'm real pleased to be a partner with Kathy Young. She really is doing the best she can for us.
She's a go-getter.
You bet.
Thank you. Have a good day.
All right.
Thank you.
Kathy Young has brought more money into this county than any other senator with the same tenure. You know that?
And last year, a lot of people don't realize this, but last year Kathy Young had more bills adopted by both houses and signed by the governor than any state senator in the entire state.
Yes, and she's received several awards already, again, for business up here, bringing a lot of business up here, doing the best she can anyway.
And she's been working hard with us on NRG and with Carriage House and Petrie and all those economic development programs. She's a real asset for us, and it's good to be a partner with her.
She's terrific. And by the way, I wanted to mention that now, since that sneak bill that went through that was worked up at midnight, you cannot buy ammunition in New York State now without a background check, which you've got to pay somebody for, and you can't sell a gun to a friend either.
No, but you can buy ammunition in Pennsylvania.
Right. Which, and you probably could still buy it on the internet, or they're trying to ban guns on the internet now.
They're trying to, but you still can.
Yeah. Incidentally, there's a great confusion over guns. People think that a semi-automatic is a machine gun. It's not. A machine gun, you just press the trigger and keep shooting until you release it. Semi-automatic, we've got to define this. A lot of people don't understand. Every time you pull the trigger, it goes off, like a pistol, a revolver, anything like that. And they're trying to, many people have such confusion, they want to do away with all semi-automatic guns, including every pistol in the world, because pistols are semi-automatics.
Of course. And the automatic guns, like the machine guns, for example, they've been banned in the nation since the 1930s.
Right.
Now, you can't own a Tommy gun. Not even Tommy can own a Tommy gun.
All right, Andy Goodell doing the job for us. The legislature did whip through a crazy law which does all kinds of things. You can't sell a gun to a friend without a background check. No. You can't buy ammunition anymore in New York State. You can't have any kind of a gun that has an adjustable stock or a stick on it or whatever. And incidentally, if your gun is stolen, if you don't report it within 24 hours, you go to jail. It's a misdemeanor in New York State now.
Now, isn't that a great thing? We arrest the victims now.
Yeah, right. And you can't have a permit anymore for pistols without going through the process every 5 years. Under the Sullivan Act, it's almost impossible to get a pistol. Craziness, Andy.
Crazy. It is crazy.
All right. Andy Goodell.
And there's one other thing you forgot to mention, Reed.
Oh, there's a bunch of them I didn't mention.
Well, the other thing that's amazing about this law is it makes it illegal for you to even give your rifle, your semi-automatic rifle with an adjustable stock, to your own children. And when you die, they can't inherit it. You know, that's a crazy provision, too.
Yeah. And
now, hopefully, you know, the New York State Sheriff's Association came out and said, you know, there are provisions in this law that are a joke, that don't make sense. Hopefully, as the public begins to understand this law more, we can separate the public frustration with gun violence with provisions in this law that don't deal with the real issues. And hopefully, we can build some support moving forward to amend the law and make it more rational.
Let's hope so. We got a couple more calls. You want to take calls? Or
sure.
Okay. Good morning.
I'd love to hear from callers.
Hey, good morning, Reed. Good morning, Andy. Andy,
morning.
I have a couple quick questions I'll ask, and then I'll get off. First question: Governor Cuomo wants to raise the minimum wage. Is this going to help, or is it going to hinder? Because I know working for a small business,
they cut you to 30 hours, right?
They're going to cut us. Right now, they've already decided they're going to cut us due to the Obamacare to under 30 hours, so they don't have to pay the benefits. So I'm going to lose over 40 hours a week. And now, if they raise the minimum wage, they'll probably cut other people. And I think it's just backfiring, going totally backwards, where it's not going to help anybody.
Well, thank you, caller. Good question. We'll let Andy chew on that one for a minute. We're running out of time. You're on, Andy.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for the call. The real challenge, of course, here in Chautauqua County is to expand our economy, to build our job base, to get more opportunities for our people to work. And the problem with the minimum wage is if New York State, by itself, unilaterally, raises its minimum wage to a rate that's higher than Pennsylvania and Ohio and all of our neighboring states, what happens is we shed entry-level jobs to other states. And if you look at Chautauqua County's economy, we have a number of companies that have sister companies in other states. And if we raise the minimum wage by 20%, as the governor is suggesting, what will happen is those entry-level jobs will go to the other states because it'll be cheaper to hire somebody in an entry-level job in some other area. Now, the effect of an increase in minimum wage has been extensively studied by highly qualified economists. And there are academic studies out there that you can get on the internet, you can type it in. And I would recommend that anyone who's seriously interested in the economic analysis by professionals, get online and type in, minimum wage, New York State, Cornell, and you'll come up with a study that was done by Cornell University that indicated that an increase in the minimum wage in New York State unilaterally would result in about 29,000 jobs lost in New York State.
Which would almost bankrupt some areas.
Absolutely.
In Chicago County, we'd be out of it.
Exactly. So if you're working for minimum wage and you keep your job and your hours aren't cut, obviously it's a good thing for you. You'll bring home more money. But the problem is that businesses respond by cutting the number of hours that people work and eliminating the jobs. And the academic research, which is backed by empirical studies, shows overwhelmingly that the people who are hurt the most by a minimum wage are actually the poor because they're priced out of the market, those with poor skills. If you look at the Chautauqua County economy, one of our strengths is that we have a lot of jobs for our young people while they're going to college. When they come back, they can work in the hospitality industry, they can work in landscaping, and they can get a job during the summer. Well, the number of jobs, unfortunately, will go down if New York State by itself raises the minimum wage. Now, if the nation raises its minimum wage and does so gradually over time, then you won't see the same negative effects because you won't see the jobs being shipped out of the area. And ultimately, my objective is to try to get as many people as possible out of poverty and into the workforce.
We're out of here.
I think that's what
we're throwing us off the air. Andy, I do appreciate you coming in, and I want to give you a minute, or half a minute anyway, uninterrupted to close up. This is your time.
Reed, it's a great pleasure to be on your show. We've been doing this for 18 years, and I look forward to doing it for another 18 years.
Certainly. I hope so.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate the opportunity to be on your show and to address issues that are important to all of us. And I encourage everyone who's got an idea or a thought or an opinion to call my office or email my office and let us know because we value your opinion.
Do you have a phone number?
I do. It's Jamestown 664-773, or my email was on here earlier.
Yeah, you can look up Goodell under Google.
Yes, that's right.
Google Goodell. Okay, guys. Thank you. Last caller, or I guess last two callers. We're running out of time, so we'll have to do it next time. You'll come back, won't you, sometime soon?
You bet.
Great.
And you're going to have my wife on, too.
That's right. Lisa's going to be on in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, she's the executive director, Chautauqua Blind and Visually Impaired. And
all right, and she was highly recommended. I didn't know it was Lisa until I called, incidentally. His whole family's have been on now, his daughter, and we've got Roger coming on next, right? Talk about football. I want to thank everybody out there. Again, apologies to the last caller. Chuck Kelsey does the job. Devin Taylor, Chris Burt, Randy Burt, Chris Ramaker, Jeff Zook, Don Zenz, and John Hamels. Thank you guys for making this show an overwhelming success. Now we're being watched all over the county. Goodbye, Rosie, in Jamestown, New York. May all that is proud and true and noble abide with you. I'm Reed Powers.